If it would be
that would be easy.
then it would be easy and perfect responsive images will work. What's making it so complicated?
The sizes attribute.
Today we're talking about responsive images.
Yes, another image topic. So,
what are responsive
images? Yeah.
Oh no.
So I guess it's about the issues with responsive images, right? I guess by now we have like 2023, right? Most people at least have heard about responsive images and are implementing like some sort of technique to load it. May it be like a source set, attribute in an image tag, or like source elements, source tags inside of a picture element. But the question is, why is it so hard to get this working? Why is it so hard to still like receive or always serve the best image for a specific user agent browser device that you open a website with, right?
Right. Because the old way of implementing images, also responsive images on a website, was just like, hey, we got one image, it's in an image tag and it resizes. Yay, it's responsive. But that's not what you're supposed to do these days, but you're supposed to load a different picture for various resolutions, for various screen sizes, and for different pixel density screens, like mobile screens, desktop screens, so-called retina screens, typically.
Yeah, it's actually a shame, right, that you can't, like, it's still not the case that you just have to use one image and then somehow some magic will convert that into the correct resolutions. Because I know that like there are tools that do that, right? Also, for example, like the mod PageSpeed, or like which is like an extension for Apache. That's the same thing for Nginx. That will actually create the optimal image for a given browser. And the only thing you have to do in code is specify a source. So, yeah. And unfortunately, like it's not really the case that is part of most people's hosting environment. And also, like, I don't know, there are other tools that help you if you do like pre-processing or like server-side generation. Like, you can optimize the images, but it's always like, okay, you have to make some assumptions or have to implement it in a way that it's optimal for the browser. And what is not optimal for the browser, Stefan?
Yeah.
Like, what could be the challenges?
Well, yeah, why are we doing this at all, right? You could just like upload one very large image and the browser does resize it and makes it smaller. So what's the problem? Well, of course, it's about the data that is transferred, that we want to keep the data transferred as small as possible, as close as possible to what's needed to display the perfect image quality, right? And therefore, we usually want to have a large image as a basis and then resize that to various dimensions, and then let the browser figure out or tell the browser which image it should load, depending on the size that it's displayed, depending on the pixel density of the browser. And that's just not so easy. I always thought there should be a more easy way, but it's not that easy, because you need an image, multiple images, first in the right resolutions. Let's just assume we have an image in 6 resolutions in 375 pixels, 750, 800, 1500, 2400 pixel width, whatever, something like that. And then you need to put them in the image tag with
source set
attribute. You put the standard image into the source attribute, the standard one, and then you have the source set attribute where you add all those image sizes, and then you add a second parameter defining what the width of the image is, like W800 for an image that is 800 pixels wide. And then it would be great if that would be it.
Yes.
If it would be
that would be easy.
Then it would be easy. And then I think perfect responsive images will work very well, very easy. What's missing? What's making it so complicated?
The sizes attribute.
Yeah.
Because you have to tell the browser for what media query, what resolution to load. The standard stuff, if you don't specify a size, it will always be that the width is set to 100 viewport width, right? So 100 VW. That's like the default value if you don't set a sizes attribute. That means for actually, which is quite nice, because for mobile, you quite often have most images at 100 VW, right?
Or almost 100 minus 16
excluding the padding or something like that, right? So that's the problem. But you get like a pretty good approximation, right? So but for desktop or tablet views, or whenever you have something like an image that is not full width, you actually will load images that are too big, because the browser thinks that the container is bigger than it actually is, or that the image is bigger than it actually is. So
but typically it stops like growing bigger at some point, like at, I don't know, 768 pixels, it stops getting wider, or 800 or 1200. And that will be, this is still rather easy to write as a media query, but what if you have something that turns into a grid and becomes smaller at some point and then larger again, going from full width mobile to a 2 grid, then 3 grid, and then I don't know. Yeah, it has so many different sizes. So the browser needs those two informations. What kind of images do I have available? In what kind of sizes are they available? And then we need to tell the browser what the image is supposed to be displayed right now. And that's what makes it so hard, like calculating that, because we need to match that to the actual display and media query and CSS. And when the CSS changes, you have to adjust the sizes attribute to do that perfectly. And we, most of the times, try to do that very perfectly. I think I've seen many websites where people don't seem to take it that, don't try to make it perfect. But yeah, we really want to do that. However, what I was thinking about the second thing, doesn't the browser know already what the size of the image is? Why do I have to tell it?
Yes. Yeah, that's like the interesting question, right? Why do we have to say that? And like the thing is, like, I'm not a browser engineer or anything, not working on browsers.
No.
But basically, like, images are loaded, like, if you don't use lazy loading, right? Images are loaded immediately, like before actually the layout is calculated, before the painting is done. So the browser actually doesn't know how big a container is before, like, when it wants to start downloading the image. And that is the whole issue with all of that.
So the page, even the CSS, might not be rendered. I have actually no idea of the order on what is happening when there. It's exactly, but I just assume, yeah, like you said, like probably the layout isn't even ready when you could start loading or preloading images to be as fast as possible in the calculation. However, these days, that's typically not what you do on a website, right? But typically, if the image is within, like above the fold, within the viewport right away when you load the website, then it would be great to load the image as soon as possible, so that you have a great LCP, largest contentful paint, if it is the largest contentful paint. But everything else typically these days is getting lazy loaded anyways when the layout is rendered. So can we please get rid of this?
Yeah, so to be honest, like, we had this discussion when we were talking about Flint and how to proceed with our approach of loading images, because we use a library called lazysizes, right? So this is like one of the most popular libraries for JavaScript libraries for lazy loading images and other content. And the thing is, like one of the reasons why we still use it and why we also still use it in Flint next, like in the next version of Flint, is that it has this awesome feature called data sizes, right? Data sizes equals auto. So what that means, because it is JavaScript. JavaScript will most likely be loaded after your CSS, and also be like the execution will be done like after everything is painted and so on. So actually, what it basically does, it sets the sizes attribute to a static value, right? To just a number of pixels. So it sets the sizes attribute to the actual pixel width of the containing element. And that will tell the browser. So then that means you don't need actually media queries inside of this sizes attribute, but you can also just put in one pixel value. But of course, like this changes when you resize the browser. So this is something that needs to be done dynamically. And so we decided to leave this library in Flint again, because it is quite hard to specify the sizes attribute correctly. And the question now is, why can't browsers do that if we have lazy loading already? And the thing is, there is an ongoing discussion in like the HTML working groups or the W3C. I don't know, like what what bodies there are like that are discussing this. But I've read through a couple of GitHub issues where they actually talk about exactly that, right? So that means if you do lazy load an image, you can actually have the sizes attribute be automatically determined. And hopefully this will land at some point, so we can drop another dependency, right?
Yeah.
But again, and like you could also say that you want to, like from a browser point of view, right? Because they are discussing this to have like another value of loading where it's not the same as lazy loading, but it's a little bit in between eager and lazy. So that means load this image once the like layout calculation has been completed, right? So this would be then also for above the fold things, or this would like speed up basically the loading a little bit. But still, you like in above the fold situations, you would still run into these issues that you have to specify the sizes attribute manually to achieve optimal results.
Yeah. But it would be so much easier if we wouldn't have to do that, yeah. And I'm just like, I'm thinking like, also like since responsive images have been around, there's a lot of stuff improved, right? Native lazy loading, but also the dynamic ratio calculation of images with the, for example, the width and height attribute or aspect ratio. So these are indicators that we can do more stuff like that. And I was thinking if like it would be cool if the browser just had some kind of API, or we had something where you could just like get told about the perfect image sizes that the browser would actually need, kind of like on maybe even dynamically when the browser is requesting images, that then it would send a request to the server telling you, well, actually the perfect image size for this device here, based on the size it should be displayed, if it's displayed lazily and the layout is there rendered already, and like the browser knows about the device size and so on, just tell me that I want an image that is 634 times 275 pixels. And then we could just look it up in the server, see if we have an image of that size. If not, choose an image that is very close to that. Or if that doesn't exist, then generate a new one on the fly and save it for everyone for later. Yep. Wouldn't that be?
But I mean, this is exactly what this mod PageSpeed thing is doing, right? or at least like
Is
there's
it?
the option
I have
to
no
do
idea.
that. Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, that like this is the interesting part about this whole mod PageSpeed. Like it's basically, I think it's even from Google, right? So it's basically like all of, or at some point in time, I haven't been following that lately, but at some point in time, it was like all the PageSpeed rules, like every suggestion what you can do, like basically implemented in a Apache or Nginx module, where you would get that out of the box, right? With a two-way communication. So there was like this added like some JavaScript, some like beacon stuff in order to send back information to the server or like to this module. And this is actually like pretty awesome stuff. Yeah, but again, I don't know if I have seen that on on any production websites. I know we have used it before, but also didn't like get the results that we expected because there were some issues with like some other things, and then in the end we were better off doing the manual optimization. So it's a bit of a shame because I would really like it. I mean, another cool thing would be an image format, right? I mean, there is this what is it called? There are different ways to encode an image that will affect like the loading of it, right? So either it's like line by line, or it's like like sort of enhancing this stuff, right? So it would be great if there was if all images were in this progressively enhanced format. So you get like first a pixelated image, and then it gets like finer and finer, and you would just like stop at a certain point. And then like and the browser could decide itself like how much detail and it needs, right? And load like the missing pixels in the meantime or whatever. So that will also be quite nice.
I think there is this camera manufacturer, Red. They are creating film cameras, and I've just seen a video about their codec, that they own a patent on some kind of codec to store raw material but compressed on a SSD device. And that's all I know. I didn't research any further, but it sounds like this would be something like that, right? To have the highest quality type of image, the raw format, but like make sure that that you can kind of compress it on the fly, and then maybe also only decompress it to a certain degree or to a size or the depth and detail that you need for that picture. Like a dynamic, like with variable fonts and stuff like that, a variable image format that has multiple sizes and options.
Yeah, exactly. So that like you have like a 5 megabyte image, right?
Yeah.
And you just upload it. And if the browser says after 1 megabyte, that's enough, you have like a working image, just not with as many details as the 5 megabyte one. Like this would actually be pretty cool.
Yeah. That would be super cool.
And I mean, yeah, with videos, you have like these playlists, right? And this is like sort of similar, but not exactly. But a video is also a little bit different because you always have like these chunks of data, right? And if the first chunks are in a really bad resolution, you won't really notice that much. And then it will just like load the next ones in a better resolution. So,
I don't know much about that.
Yeah.
But okay.
Yeah, it's this like HLS and MP3 dash or MPEG dash, not MP3, MPEG dash.
Yeah. But what just comes to my mind also regarding that size optimization and so on, we could also be a bit more lazy with like, or not to make it as perfect with or the better that also the computing power and bandwidth get of people, right? Because at some point, like, it doesn't make that much of a difference. So I think when we recently did a couple of PageSpeed tests on some optimizations. What was interesting was also that we discovered some differences in the page speed performance and the loading behavior of the website, but I was able to track it down in a couple of examples to just like the changed simulated bandwidth, right? And not the actual execution time. But that was only noticeable when we set the bandwidth to slow or fast 3G, something like that. But if we live in a world where everything is 5G, then and the image sizes don't get much bigger and grow in the same way, just like as HTML documents don't grow bigger. Maybe at some point this also won't be a big issue anymore. And I think we kind of are treating it like that already. Maybe we might be even a bit more progressive. What do I mean? When we look at the reference point on why we want to get it perfect or very nice is also page speed. That's one of the reasons we want to get perfect page speed. And today we're looking at the mobile page speed. And actually, like, yeah, when it's only about achieving great page speed, then you could also say, 100 viewport width, and just like follow that default easy approach and say, okay, in case like we might just have too big images for desktop, but we don't really care, but because desktop computers have a fast bandwidth, and it's not too bad if we load a megabyte more in data, but we still get 100 of 100 in page speed. Is that a reasonable thought even? It just came to my mind. What do you think?
Yeah, I think like, you know that I'm I'm a fan of making things optimal as well, not wasting any resources and so on. And I think, like, I mean, yes, we are in Europe here, although like in Germany we don't have like great internet connections, and especially when I'm on mobile, a lot of the times I have like here where I live, like not very good connection, and then it does not, like, it does suck if the images are bigger than they should be, right?
But
and
still,
this
that's
is only
mobile. Does your mobile device cater for bad bandwidth? Does it serve a lower resolution bandwidth, or does it always prioritize actually the resolution?
Like it's there are resource hints where you can like the image tag like doesn't do that, right?
Probably it doesn't, yeah. But it should, maybe just like similar to a video.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and like I mean, data plans are getting bigger and bigger. I mean, like in general, I mean, you have to. Okay, let's like one other thing that I wanted to say. Like in just looking how long we've been talking, but with WordPress, right, and Gutenberg, you actually also like it. The WordPress default sizes attribute is not 100% the default one. It just adds like another rule that if the media like a media query for viewport widths that are bigger than the image itself, right? Then it will just use the maximum image size, like what you uploaded. So that's like the only thing, because in WordPress it is possible that an image gets like when it gets resized, that it also gets enlarged and not only cropped, right? And they don't want to basically load the enlarged versions of it. So that's it. That's how the default WordPress behavior is for images, and it doesn't seem that people seem to care that much. That's always the thing.
Maybe I just understood that now, because actually the default way that WordPress does it is because it's good enough. It's like it's getting you probably close to perfect score on mobile, and then everything that is not mobile is like, well, we don't care. Just load a bigger image.
Yeah, and as we've also recently found out in with our latest versions of Flint, right, where we actually forgot to activate a plugin for WebP conversion, right? So we were just serving the regular JPEGs and PNGs that we uploaded in WordPress. And we still were able to get a 100 out of 100 score on Google PageSpeed in performance. And it said, yeah, consider using next-gen image formats, right? Although we had like
should it
points,
actually give us that result? I thought that was pretty ridiculous. It's like, well, your images aren't optimized. And it's like, we still give you 100. Wow. Just because it was so fast. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess it all depends, right?
Yeah. Maybe, yeah, we were obsessing a bit too much about that. But still, I just think we're on the same page, right? We want to make it the right way. We want to make sure that it's like that you use the possibilities that are there and that you don't load any waste, that you only load the sizes and images that you actually need. So that's why we typically, with our website development, with Flint and we use Timber for the automatic image, kind of on the fly image resizing. We typically have at least 6 image sizes defined for a single image. It might be even more, 8, 10, 12. I've seen more than that probably even. To cater for all kinds of different resolutions and displays of an image within certain grid sizes, full width, and so on. And yeah, that's the best you can get. But I would appreciate it a lot if achieving that would get much simpler.
Yeah, just like 2 more things that are on my mind. One of them is like the hard part, right? I mean, of course, we said, okay, if it's enough to say, okay, 100 viewport width, yeah, then we're good. Then it will be a lot simpler, because then you actually don't have to add anything to your then you don't need to add sizes, because that's just the browser default, right? So that is pretty simple, I would say. The other thing is, like, when we were like the biggest issues that we had was really when there were changes after the initial development, right? For example, the worst for a while there was like a running joke at Bleach where we said, yeah, the client will probably come in at the end and say, okay, can you please make everything 20% smaller? And then we say, okay, we just use the scale, the shrinkening. Yeah, that was the. So instead of using like just the scale option on scale property on the body, we of course went in and like changed everything. And of course, then like everything changes with regards to this sizes attribute. So that was like one thing where it's like usually where it made the biggest, where it had like the biggest impact, sort of, right? Or also caused like the biggest pain. Also, sometimes people forgot it then, right? And didn't like double check that, and then you would actually load images that have the wrong size. So, but the other day, you remember we talked about like everything is fluid these days, like it seems, right? Or a lot of the times you have fluid layouts and fluid, even fluid fonts now, but even before fluid fonts, like images were actually fluid a lot of the times, right? So it's actually hard to specify the right image sizes, right?
Yeah.
Because there are because there's actually an infinite amount of like possible image sizes if you have fluid images. But then like taking something from these like new fluid techniques in the browser in CSS, we actually thought about using clamp and the min-max functions inside of the sizes attribute, because this actually does work. I haven't really seen that anywhere, but it works. Also, like the new style of media queries, like with the where you can like chain media queries and you can do greater than and or greater and equals and stuff like that. Like this will make things a little more easy maybe to work with. But yeah, of course, the easiest thing is just don't specify it. So we came from at the beginning, the hardest part is using sizes.
Yeah.
The sizes attribute to, like just leave it off. But no.
Also, I think
we are not going to do that.
We're not going to do that.
No.
Yeah, right. Also, because it's not just about wasting sizes, but it can actually be the other way around, right? Because I think the default size attribute by WordPress is that it stops at some point, right? It says like after, I don't know what it is exactly.
No, it's the max width. Like it's the width of the image that you uploaded.
Ah, okay. Yeah, after it gets wider. Huh? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So it's like max
width. Okay, but
width.
then it would always be too large, right? Or it could be too large, but doesn't have. I think that doesn't have a max width, right? If I upload a image that is 4,000 pixels wide, WordPress by default would cut it down, right? Set the max size, and then would take that. But if I disable that option, does it still take? Does it then say, okay, take 100% width until 4,000?
Yes.
Well, that's an issue. Then maybe that is only displayed in like full width on mobile, and then a grid 3x3 or something like that on desktop, and you would have like 300 pixels width, and instead you're loading 4,000.
Yes.
So then you're talking about megabytes and megabytes of data. That would be ridiculous and a serious problem. And probably that's why they like try to by default like have this max size. But if you have that, then it actually, what's that max size value? Was it 1,200, 800, 2,000?
2,000 something.
But then it could be at some point too small, because if you want to have a nice image on a desktop retina display, you would need a 3,000, 4,000 pixel image, and you wouldn't be able to get that. So you can also have images that are too small. So if you want to have high standards, like the highest standards, then you got to go this custom route. But for many websites, the standard is good enough and achieving still some quite good results. But just not perfect results.
Yeah. The standard is good enough a lot of the times. But if you want the best, you need to code something custom, right?
Yes.
That's always our approach.
That's what we always end up with, yeah.
Yeah. Good. Do you have anything else to add to responsive images?
I think
we probably forgot some stuff.
I was just looking for something that I wrote down yesterday. I found on Smashing Magazine someone writing about priority hints of images. Fetch priority high. Have you heard about that?
Honestly, no.
Okay, I didn't either. And so priority hints, there's a priority hint, like you can add a new HTML attribute to images and say fetch priority high. So that is, loaded very quickly and faster than other things and images on the website. And in that article, they wrote that you can or should use that to optimize for the largest contentful paint.
Yeah, because I mean, in general, again, if you lazy load all of the images that are below the fold, of course, like the first image will there should be only like one image most of the time that you load then immediately, and there's no need to prioritize that over other images, right? But it might be that you have so little JavaScript and CSS on your site that the image actually takes way longer to load. And therefore, like usually the CSS would be first, then maybe the JavaScript, and then the image. And this way you can probably like turn that around and say, hey, this image is, please load that even before all the other stuff.
Exactly. It says like as soon as the HTML document is received, then please start loading the image immediately. But for that, again, you don't know what the size of the image will be yet in the layout. And you need a sizes attribute. Yeah. Right. And you can also use that on pictures. Oh, we didn't even talk about the picture element.
Yeah. I feel like, do you remember at the beginning when responsive images were introduced, we almost always used picture elements. I think also because of like picture fill or like some like polyfill stuff. But in the end, a picture element is usually like, there are two ways or two reasons why you want to use a picture element. One is for content, what is it? Content, not curation. How do you call it? Direction, content direction, right? No.
What creative direction? I think I had a word on my mind that I wanted to say, and then I got confused. I lost it. But probably
content curation. No, content.
No, but I think like back in the days, we did a lot of websites where it was just like that the mobile website has a different image format than the desktop website. This was very common. Somehow it's not that common or big of an issue anymore. But yeah, I think that was why, because most of the websites, they had very much designed large banners with text on them and so on. So they would work great on desktop, but you couldn't scale that down to mobile. We needed different sized images. That's what you need the picture.
Yeah, it was a lot of the times like the image was then squared, right? So it was like a square image on mobile and like a really like landscape image on desktop. So yeah, that's like the one. Yeah, content direction, isn't that the word? I don't know. Well, whatever. So if you want to change like the type of if you want to really change the image format based on a media query. Again, this is number one. And number two, why you would need a picture element is for loading different image formats, actually. So if you want to load an image, if you want to do the default way and not like some hacky way with like different accept headers and like server rules, you would actually say define a source, multiple sources with the same image, but with a different type, like MIME type. So that is the one thing. And you know that all of this stuff is also coming to background images, right? And a lot of this is also available in background images. And this wasn't for a long time, but I feel like we hardly ever use background images anymore. That was also different.
Background images was one of the biggest things because you needed them a lot when you didn't have
object fit.
Huh?
Object fit.
My gosh. And I just Googled while you were talking on Mozilla MDN Web Docs. Art direction is the word.
Art direction, not content direction. Art direction. Yeah. Damn it.
Okay.
Exactly.
Maybe we should stop here. We don't even the words don't come anymore.
Yeah, we covered most of it.
We covered most of it. Most significant part, source set, and a bit of picture element. Yes.